Hi, good afternoon. My name is Gary Zassman. This is a very short presentation just to introduce you to the cloud pathways that you can take when using AWS to get to a better IT result. What we'll cover today is quickly intro to myself. We'll cover intro to the pathways. We'll do an analogy so you can understand what they are, and then actually cover them from a technical perspective, as well as just take a quick look at the AWS service catalog and what's available to you. We'll also talk about an introduction to the operational strategies and how to think about them, as well as how to get business alignment. And let's connect, share ideas, and let me know what you'd like to see. We'll be adding a lot of content, more detailed content to this channel, so stay tuned. Again, my name's Gary Zassman. My favorite sport is big wave bodyboarding. I started my career in ITIL data center. We were at payroll for 500,000 employees. Spent 5 years learning ITIL, fantastic management tools. Then I did 10 years operating a SaaS system, and we've transformed that. Started as regular servers and storage, and we've transformed that with AWS. I have 2 patents in research as well as information management, and I've done education at MIT and some undergraduate class degrees in management and computers. We'll do a lot of upcoming YouTubes. This one is the quick intro to the cloud pathways to help you make a decision which pathway you want to follow, and then you can go and do some additional investigation yourself. But we will be covering more of the detailed technologies involved in these pathways over time, and you will find them along with pricing and technical details. As you can see, this covers server storage, routing, DNS, auto scaling, security, all the way to infrastructure as a code. And now for an analogy, we have 4 pathways, basically 4 pathways we can take with AWS. The first is infrastructure as a service. And an analogy to that would, and all these analogies will follow the same storyline. We'll take this analogy to you starting a company, getting a building, outfitting it, and getting people and doing your business functions. So in infrastructure as a service, you will have a service provider, third-party provider, which is in the first column. And they'll provide the building and all the desks and seats, and you will provide the orange, which is the building management and tools, utilities, people, and perform all your sales and marketing activities. The next column is containers as a service. And again, in the next slide, we will cover how the technical functions inside the cloud provider line up with all of these. But this is just to get an understanding from an analogy perspective. As containers as a service, the provider gives you the building, the desks and seats, the building management tools. Again, the second column. You'll provide all the utilities, the AC, you'll provide the people and do your sales and marketing. In the third column, which is platform as a service, your provider will do the building, the desk and seats, the building management tools, provide all the utilities, AC, and manage them. You'll just provide the people and do your sales and marketing. In the fourth column, functions as a service, the provider provides almost everything from the building all the way through to the people, and all you do on top of that is execute your sales and marketing activities. And you will see how that lines up to functions as a service in the next slide. Okay, so this is how it lines up technically. Infrastructure as a service. The cloud provider, in this case AWS, provide the data center, hardware, and virtualization. You provide the operating system, or at least you manage the operating system. You provide the runtime and containers, the functions and applications. So you are doing all the stuff and managing all the stuff in the orange. And a good example of that is Elastic Compute Services, which is known at EC2 and widely used at AWS. The next pathway you can take is containers as a service. Basically, containers, you containerize the runtimes and the code, and you can run many of those on top of an infrastructure. It enables you to run the containers all the way from the same container from a PC all the way to servers. So it's really easy for your development to ship these around and test and run and develop, etc., and deploy. So in the containers as a service, the third-party provider will give you everything from the data center through to the operating system, and you will provide the runtime or at least manage the runtimes and containers, your functions and applications. And a good example of this is Elastic Compute Services. You can just provide it containers and they will manage the containers for you. In the ECS environment, Elastic Compute, you do need to have EC2 services, so it's not serverless. If you want that environment to be serverless, you can actually just make your containers, your functions, applications, and actually provide them to Fargate, and they will manage automatically and in a serverless fashion your containers. In that case, in the case of Fargate, you do not have any infrastructure to manage, so that is serverless. The next level up is platform as a service in the third column from the left, and the cloud provider provides everything from the data center through to the runtimes and the containers. You just write the functions and applications, and a good example of this is Elastic Beanstalk. You just go into Amazon, hit a few buttons, and select what runtimes you want, what programming language you want, how many containers, etc. And Amazon will provision all the servers and storage in a very neat fashion for you, and all you're doing is managing your applications and functions. The next level up is a very exciting field called functions as a service, and this is event-driven computing, and we are moving here fast. In this case, Amazon or AWS will provide everything from the data center up through the function capability. All you're doing is writing the code that sits inside the functions and your applications. This is completely serverless, not meaning, and in terms serverless is not meaning that you don't have any servers, but it means that you don't manage any servers. So Lambda is event-driven computing, and you only pay for what you use. You just pay for the execution time when your functions are running. So those are the 4 pathways you can think about, and you can select the one that best suits your time to market and your development requirements. Moving on, when you get into Amazon, you'll see a service catalog that looks like this. You can see the green ones are the ones that you'll definitely use most often, and the others are optional when you want to get into things like machine learning, game development, robotics, or whatever you want to get into. We will be covering most of these topics inside of this channel in a lot of detail, technical detail as well as pricing detail. The next step, once you've chosen your path, is to look at your operational strategy. How are you going to operate this? Are you going to do 24/7? Who's going to architect and deploy it? So it needs to get all your requirements, and that can actually be coded into infrastructure as a code, and you can manage that like you do software in a CI/CD environment, and then you deploy that code automatically. So that's a very neat way to actually get to manage your deployments. And then as you run, you want to optimize and change, make sure you're not overspending, and make sure you're not overutilizing or have too many resources and not overutilizing resources. And then you need to look at tools like how you're going to manage your infrastructure as a code. Are you going to use CloudFront or other tools that operate against multiple clouds? So this is where you start coding your infrastructure. It's called infrastructure as a code, and then you will deploy it like you do normal software so that you can manage your revisions in a very neat fashion and make sure your environment's protected and well maintained. Additionally, you need to look at the business strategy, and Porter says that there's 3 strategy options, and your company must have adopted one of these. So the first 2 are industry-wide in the center square. The cost leadership strategy, where you lead by cost and differentiating your products. You can do that industry-wide. The third option is to focus on one segment. If you focused on just healthcare customers or whatever your focus may be. And again, once you understand what these are, if it is a cost leadership strategy, or maybe you differentiate yourself by getting to market quickly, you may decide to use functions as a service, or you might decide to use another service, so that you're making sure that these IT pathways through cloud are aligned with your business strategy.